We welcome everyone joining us today from around the world for the 8th webinar in our Multiverse webinar series. Today's webinar will be on the Multiverse Studio Receiver and Multiverse Studio Kits. I'm Harrison Honholt of City Theatrical, and I'll be your presenter today. We've covered a lot of territory in our Multiverse webinar series. If you want to be an expert in wireless DMX and RDM, watch our webinars and you'll be well on your way. Some of the topics we've covered include the breakthrough features of the multiverse technology, how it's different than any other wireless DMX system in the world, and why it represents the future of wireless DMX technology. The plug-and-play 2.4 GHz Multiverse SHoW transceiver, the Multiverse node, a single universe transceiver which contains both 2.4 GHz and 900 MHz radios, the Multiverse Transmitter, which contains 4 different radios, and which can broadcast as many as 10 universes from one transmitter. Wireless dimming for props and costumes with our ColorFlex Multiverse dimmers, the Multiverse receiver card, the RadioScan frequency analyzer, and many other topics relevant to wireless DMX and RDM, like best practices, site surveys, optimizing your broadcast to get maximum fidelity, working with specialized antennas, and other radio concepts which are not necessarily intuitive to the average user of wireless DMX, but are necessary to know to work successfully on the professional level. Today, we'll look at our film and video products called Multiverse Studio. In our next Multiverse webinar, we'll look at our outdoor Multiverse transceiver, Multiverse Vero. All of our webinars live on as recordings on the Multiverse pages of our website, citytheatrical.com/multiverse. We have plenty of helpful information on the Downloads tab of all the Multiverse pages of our website, including manuals, quick start guides, case studies, and white papers if you want to dig even deeper into wireless DMX technology. If you have any questions today, please type them into the Q&A box at the top of your screen. You may need to click the Q&A tab to open the Q&A box. Be sure to address your questions to all panelists, which enables me to see them. Now it is time for our swag giveaway. One listener will earn a City Theatrical Radio Spectrum Analyzer just for logging on to today's webinar. We'll reach into the fishbowl, pick out a name, and it is Kenneth Young. Congratulations, Kenneth. We will contact you by email and make the arrangements to get you your RadioScan. It's a great tool, and we'll be talking more about it, how it's used in our webinar today. Here's a short public service announcement on behalf of ESTA's Behind the Scenes organization. Even without the uncertainties of life in a pandemic, the unique environment and stresses of working in the entertainment industry are extremely challenging. It's critical to make sure you and those you care about stay healthy, mentally, emotionally, and physically. The Behind the Scenes Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Initiative is providing tools and resources specifically for entertainment industry workers at btshelp.org/mental help. These include Be Seen, Be Heard, a 24/7, 365 peer-to-peer chat app, an online therapist finder that only includes therapists who understand the industry, anonymous online behavioral self-assessments to help you understand what you're feeling, easy to navigate resource links so you don't get overwhelmed looking for help, and suicide prevention information and posters to help save lives. Go to btshelp.org/mental help for more information. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's get started. This is the Multiverse Wireless DMX RDM family of products as it stands today. I'll identify them for you from left to right on your screen. First, and smallest, is our Multiverse module for lighting manufacturers. Next is Multiverse receiver card. Then 2 ColorFlex Multiverse wireless low voltage dimmers. Next is the RadioScan frequency analyzer. Then DMXcat and its app. In the very center is the Multiverse Studio Receiver we'll be discussing today. Then Multiverse SHoW, Multiverse Node, Multiverse Transmitter, and our outdoor Multiverse Vero, which we'll discuss in our next webinar. Until Multiverse, all of our wireless DMX products have been in the 2.4 GHz band. With Multiverse, we added 900 MHz radios. which are certified for use in North America only. As the 2.4 GHz band continues to get more and more crowded, moving some or all of your broadcasts to 900 MHz gives a new option to North American users. While both 2.4 GHz and 900 MHz are good choices for wireless DMX, they have slightly different characteristics. 2.4 GHz can carry more data than 900 MHz, but 900 MHz can pass through objects better and travel greater distances. The 900 MHz band is also generally less crowded than 2.4 GHz. We're sometimes asked why we don't utilize the 5.8 GHz band for wireless DMX. The reason is that it doesn't travel as far as 2.4 GHz, and it doesn't pass through objects as well, often requiring line-of-sight operation. These reasons make it difficult to use successfully for wireless DMX for lighting use, although it is used successfully for other uses in the entertainment technology. Using 5.8 GHz for those purposes helps reduce the overcrowding of the 2.4 GHz band. All Multiverse products contain many new breakthrough technologies. We'll review some of them briefly today, but you can learn about them in depth by listening to the first webinar in this series, which is an overview of multiverse technology. Here are the breakthrough multiverse technologies. An advanced radio that can carry more DMX data while using very little radio energy. A technology we call Multiverse DMX, or MDMX, which produces a dramatic reduction in radio energy used. A technology we call Multiverse RDM, or MRDM, which improves wireless RDM performance. SHoW key security, which is an additional 3-digit code that can be added to the Multiverse SHoW ID that will prevent any other nearby system set on the same SHoW ID from interfering with your system. Forward error correction allows the receiver to detect and correct errors that may occur in the wireless transmission of data. Ultra low latency. There's a total average system latency of 4 milliseconds. User selectable adaptive spread spectrum frequency hopping identifies and masks off hopping channels that contain interference, replacing them in the hop sequence with alternate channels. Also, adjustable output power. Sometimes an application calls for the maximum available power, but many times you can utilize lower output power to reduce problems from other radio interference in the venue, reduce reflections, and improve performance. And finally, user selectable SHoW IDs. City Theatrical has always produced wireless DMX products that allowed the user to select the optimum transmission method. Users may select full bandwidth hopping limited to a section of the spectrum, including areas of the spectrum outside of the Wi-Fi range, or adaptive hopping. Here are the products in the Multiverse Studio family. Part number 5904 is the Multiverse Studio Receiver. It contains both 2.4 GHz and 900 MHz radios. Part number 5905 is the same device for use outside North America, and it contains only a 2.4 GHz radio. Part number 5938 is the Multiverse Studio Kit. It contains 6 5904 receivers in a contactless charging case and a variety of other gear that I will describe in depth a bit later in this webinar. Part number 5939 is the same kit with only 2.4 GHz technology in it for use outside North America. Part number 5940 is the Multiverse Studio add-on kit, which is 6 5904 receivers in a contactless charging kit. Part number 5941 is the same kit with 5905 receivers for use outside North America. Let's take a closer look at the Multiverse Studio Receiver, 900 MHz and 2.4 GHz. It can be purchased singly as well as in the kits. When purchased singly, part number 5904 has the receiver, a charger, and a USB cable to connect them for charging or for powering from the USB outlet of a lighting fixture. The Multiverse Studio Receiver has a number of unique features. The first, a lithium-ion polymer battery with 20-hour battery life. Note that the battery life is largely dependent on the backlight of the user interface screen, and the 20-hour figure is at the default backlight setting of 70% on all the time. Battery life can be extended beyond 20 hours by using the backlight timeout feature or setting the backlight to a lower level. It is in an IP61 rated plastic case, making it splashproof and rainproof, but not for permanent outdoor use. It has a rugged, stubby, dual-band omnidirectional antenna, and there are other antennas that are available for other uses. It has a flexible corded DMX connector to allow the Multiverse Studio to hang below the lighting fixture to improve data fidelity. This also has a Velcro cable restraint in it in case you want to have the receiver attached to the yoke of the fixture instead of hanging below it. And finally, an LCD interface screen for configuration and setup. In this screen, you can set SHoW ID and universe, change the background color, change the backlight timeout time, reset factory defaults, update firmware, check battery life and radio signal quality. And since Multiverse Studio is fully RDM, you can do this remotely through an RDM controller like our DMXcat. The user interface screen has a built-in sensor to flip the screen if you turn the receiver upside down. I'll do a simple broadcast using the default settings. Let's send some data to our Multiverse Studio Receiver. I'll plug it into a lighting fixture and turn it on. I'll use the Multiverse node as a transmitter. All we need to do is make the SHoW ID, universe, and optional SHoW key match between the Multiverse node and Studio Receiver. I'm using the default SHoW ID of 24250 and the default universe 1. When I send data to my Multiverse node, it transmits DMX to our receiver. The node DMX symbol changes to DMXOK, and the signal quality bars on the receiver fill in to show a strong signal, and I can now control my lighting fixture. Of course, you can use multiple receivers on this single transmitter. That's all it takes to set up a simple single universe system using the default settings. Let's now take a look at the Multiverse Studio Kit, 900 MHz and 2.4 GHz. Our part number 5938. In this kit, we give you everything you need to plan and set up your broadcast. The case itself is a contactless charging case. Just plug the case into mains power, 100 to 240 volts, and drop the 6 weatherproof Multiverse Studio receivers into the case, and they will begin to charge, and they will stop automatically when fully charged. The lid of the case needs to stay open during charging to prevent heat buildup, which slows down charging. We give you 2 different transmitting devices in this kit. A Multiverse node, a single universe dual band transmitter with 5-pin DMX input, and a Multiverse transmitter, a dual band 9 universe transmitter with Ethernet input for streaming ACN or ArtNet. Both of these transmitting devices have mounting brackets with heavy-duty clamps attached for quick hanging. We've included 2 diagnostic and test devices in the kit to assist your setup. We developed both of these devices because we feel they're essential for professional lighting technicians, and quite frankly, we needed them in our own lighting work. And we knew others would find them useful as well. I'll give you a quick rundown of the RadioScan Spectrum Analyzer, but you can watch the full webinar on our website and on YouTube. Before you set up your wireless DMX broadcasts, it's easy to use RadioScan to do a quick scan of the 2.4 GHz and 900 MHz portions of the spectrum to see what activity is around you. Then to direct your broadcast to the best area. The alternative to that is to set up your wireless DMX system without knowing what other radio activity is around you and to hope that it works. But hope is not a good strategy when your career depends on it. RadioScan will also guide you to choose the best Multiverse SHoW ID to use. You can notate a screenshot of your scan to identify the portion of the spectrum in which you are broadcasting, as well as where other radio activity is located. And you can text or email it to others on set so everyone is aware of the location of radioactivity in the 900 MHz and 2.4 GHz bands. This encourages careful sharing of the spectrum among all users, and that is something we always want to respect and promote. What I just described takes less than 5 minutes to do, but is one of the largest determinants of broadcast success for wireless DMX and RDM. Many users leave RadioScan running all day on their laptops and monitor it from time to time to discover any new activity. The scan can also be rolled back at any time and quickly reviewed to find any unanticipated activity. and notes can be added at that point in time for reference. The second test and diagnostic tool we include in the kit is DMXcat. By the way, CAT is an acronym for Control, Analyze, and Test. It allows anyone to have a tool they can carry with them at all times that enables them to turn on, test, troubleshoot, and control any DMX lighting fixture. It links to a database of worldwide lighting fixtures and can load the exact controls to operate any of those fixtures. And it contains a powerful RDM controller. Since it is app-based, we're able to constantly update its features and to add useful new functions. DMXcat is a hardware dongle and a free app you download from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, and it contains these apps: a DMX controller with 512 sliders or a console-type keypad for entry of levels, a fixture controller linked to a database of lighting fixtures and their various personalities. This works very much like patching a lighting console and loads an accurate representation of the controls it takes to operate any fixture in any of its personalities. A DMX tester to analyze the DMX stream, transmit DMX with specified parameters, view the levels in a DMX line and a flicker finder. An RDM controller that will read the RDM parameters, load the controls for, and control any RDM fixture in our database. We are constantly adding fixtures to our database, and there's a direct link in the app to report any new fixture that you may encounter that is not yet in the database. And within a day or two, it will be added. There's also a dip switch calculator, and for the Android version only, a simple 2.4 gigahertz spectrum analyzer and a simple light meter. We developed the DMXcat because we needed it, and we felt everyone else did too. And there was nothing else like it. We gained a US patent for its unique features. There are actually two DMXcat multifunction test tools in this kit. One is loose and can be used anywhere on the set for troubleshooting just by plugging it into any fixture or any DMX line. The other is built in the Multiverse Transmitter and is the method by which that device is set up and allows control of any fixture connected to the transmitter or downstream of it. We are leaders in the use of RDM, and we use it in our products to the fullest extent. We also include 6 individual chargers and USB-C cables in the case, in case you need to power or charge the receivers outside the charging case. I'm going to show you how to set up a Multiverse transmitter to make a multiple universe broadcast. But first, we'll review a couple of items. Since we're now going to use a setup that is not a default, let's review what a City Theatrical SHoW ID is. Because if you have not used our gear before, you may not have encountered this concept. While other systems require you to push a button to link the transmitter to receivers, we don't. Our SHoW ID system allows you to set a descriptive numerical code on the transmitter and receiver that determines a number of important factors. The first 1 or 2 digits determine whether your broadcast will take place in 2.4 gigahertz or 900 megahertz. The next digit is the data rate of the broadcast, which determines how many universes you can send and the distance you can broadcast. The next digit determines the portion of the selected band in which your broadcast will take place, such as the low end, middle, high end, or very high end. And the last digit selects the hopping pattern, which allows very large systems to be scaled up without overlapping. Our SHoW ID system allows you to swap out gear in your system without having to push any buttons to link or unlink devices, and it makes setup and troubleshooting easier. This chart shows how the SHoW IDs are constructed, and you can always refer to this chart for guidance. And if you use our RadioScan spectrum analyzer for your setups, there's an even easier way to select a SHoW ID other than the default. The RadioScan spectrum analyzer has a tab built in called Multiverse IDs. If you use this tab when taking your scan, it will guide you to the best SHoW ID to choose. Let's take a look at the scan, and let's say hypothetically I need to broadcast 5 universes. The spectrum here has moderate activity except for the upper end. The Multiverse IDs function has loaded the table shown to the right of the screen, which shows the number of universes available across the x-axis and the area of the band to broadcast on along the y-axis. As I hover my mouse over each of these cells on the table, the corresponding area of the scan lights up to show where the broadcast will take place. The screenshot here shows SHoW ID 24340 in the very high end of the band. I'll zoom in a little closer so it's easier to see. The close-up view shows how the Multiverse IDs tab guides you in selecting your show ID. The view in the 900 MHz band is very similar and shows the 900 MHz show IDs. Once you have selected your show IDs, you'll need to enter them into your Multiverse Transmitter and Multiverse Studio Receivers. Let's first clarify the three different models of Multiverse Transmitter. Part number 5910 has one 2.4 GHz radio and one 900 MHz radio, allowing you to transmit up to 9 universes, 5 on 2.4 GHz and 4 on 900 MHz simultaneously. This model is for use only in North America, and this is the model in the 5938 Multiverse Studio Kit. Part number 5911 has two 2.4 GHz radios, allowing you to transmit up to 10 universes. The 2.4 GHz unlicensed band is available in much of the world. This is the model in the 5939 Multiverse Studio Kit. Part number 5912 has two 900 MHz radios, which allows you to transmit up to 8 universes. This model is for use only in North America, and although it is not included in any of the kits, it can be purchased separately. Today, I'll be setting up and describing the 5910, the dual band model, but the setup and use of all three of these models is the same. All Multiverse transmitters have 4 radios, 2 frequency hopping radios able to transmit wireless DMX simultaneously, a Bluetooth radio for connection to a smartphone, and a Wi-Fi radio for communication with Wi-Fi-based lighting controllers. This gives users the ability to communicate with the Multiverse transmitter from City Theatrical's DMXcat app on the user's smartphone. That gives the user smartphone control of any lighting fixture that's part of the Multiverse setup, whether it is a lighting fixture with a Multiverse module inside, a lighting fixture receiving its data from a Multiverse Studio Receiver, or any wired fixture downstream of those devices. You may also have noticed there's no actual user interface built into Multiverse Transmitter. There are no buttons or screen on it for making settings. Instead, we build a DMXcat into every transmitter. You only need to download the free app from the Play Store or App Store and you're ready to go. This allows remote setting of Multiverse functions from your phone, as well as a more detailed user interface than is possible when the screen is on the unit itself. These screenshots are from my Android phone. If you have an iPhone, they will look slightly different. Since the Multiverse transmitter has a DMXcat built in, you can connect to it just the way you normally would connect to a DMXcat dongle. Just choose the serial number of your transmitter on the DMXcat screen and connect. When connected, you'll see the transmitter icon in the center of your screen. This is where all of the setup for Multiverse Transmitter will happen. You can set show IDs, set the universe to be transmitted, name your universe outputs, adjust output power of your radios, and perform RDM discovery on receivers and lighting fixtures downstream of the transmitter, and many other useful tasks. Our objective now is to set up a multiple universe broadcast using 24340 as our show ID. When I click on the transmitter icon, it takes me to this main screen. It shows me the show IDs that are selected for each of the 2 radios and what universes are attached to each show ID. The Multiverse transmitter's default show IDs are 24250 and 9250, which are both adaptive hopping show IDs. Each supports 2 universes, so a total of 4 universes are shown here. If you are doing a setup of 4 universes or less, these default settings may be fine for you. Clicking on the pull-down menu on the upper right of the screen will allow us to change the show ID and show key of each of the 2 radios. I can type in 24340 for radio A. We'll leave radio B set on 9250, even though we are not using it in this example. I won't be using a show key in this example, but you can set one if you have other Multiverse systems in your vicinity to ensure there won't be interference from those systems. We'll now reconfigure those universes for our setup. I just click on the universe number and type in my new universe number. I'll use universes 11 through 17. Always remember that the show ID, show key if used, and universe must match between the transmitter and all receivers. Now, we will configure our Multiverse Studio receivers to match our transmitter. Once I turn on my receiver, I can toggle back and forth from show ID to universe. Pushing enter allows me to change them. and I'll set 24340 on each receiver. And I'll assign universes 11 through 15 to each of the first 5, and universe 15 again to the 6th. This is just an example. You could assign multiple receivers to each universe if you had more receivers. If I'm using an optional show key, I can set it on the menu screen, and I would also need to set that in the transmitter. If you want to, you can select a backlight color for each universe to make sorting receivers easier at a glance. Go to Menu, Display Color, and choose one of 5 colors or white. The universe number still always shows on the screen. Now, if you send DMX to your transmitter, you'll see signal quality bars on the Multiverse Studio Receivers, and the no DMX signal will change to DMX OK, and you're in business. Your battery life remaining in hours and minutes, as well as in percentage, is also shown. Each of these items can also be monitored in RDM on your DMXcat app connected to the Multiverse transmitter. Bluetooth has a range of about 50 feet, so you do need to be in proximity to the transmitter. Let's look at a few ways to judge the system's performance. In some ways, you can improve it. The signal quality bars on the user interface tell us a lot. There are 4 bars. 3 or 4 bars means excellent quality. 2 bars are acceptable, and 1 bar is marginal. Signal quality can also be checked by using RDM on the DMXcat app. To improve signal quality, you can improve the placement of your transmitter or receiver. Remember, higher is better. And check that your omnidirectional antennas are vertical and parallel to each other. If those actions don't help, sometimes specialized antennas, such as panel antennas or Yagi antennas, can. Nearly all broadcast problems can be overcome with specialized antennas. And you can check the index of our previous webinars to learn much more about antennas. Even multiple universe broadcasts are easy to set up as long as you remember that show ID, show key, and universe need to match between transmitting devices and all receiving devices. To expand beyond the 6 Multiverse Studio Receivers found in the 5938 kit, you can also add individual Multiverse Studio Receivers or a Multiverse Receiver add-on kit with 6 receivers in a contactless charging case. We hope that our Multiverse Studio kits will meet your needs as film and video lighting technicians. We worked with focus groups and beta testers from Hollywood and New York to better understand your needs, and we built these kits to best reflect what we learned and to eliminate problems you are facing with the wireless DMX gear you are presently using. We believe Multiverse wireless DMX and RDM technology represents the future of wireless lighting and will continue to develop products to help you meet your daily lighting needs. So we have some time for some questions. Let's take a look. What do we have here? Does it always transmit an entire universe? If not, does transmitting many devices increase the latency? So really, the Multiverse transmitter is only transmitting what you are sending. So if there are cues that are going, it will send data. If there are no cues moving, no adjustments, it will pull back on sending its data and will not send anything over the air. So the latency pretty much becomes 0 because it is just being output by the receiver. Can you control the Multiverse Studio using the CAT? It would be a good option to allow on-set temporary control. Yes. So when you connect to the Multiverse transmitter with your DMXcat app, you will have control over the Multiverse Studio, making changes via RDM and all of that. Is it compatible with CDMX? No, or CRMX. It is not compatible with CRMX. This is a very different technology. What specific functions makes this different from Multiverse SHoW Baby? So one of the big differences is the Multiverse SHoW Baby is only 2.4 gigahertz, where the Multiverse Studio is dual band. It's 2.4 gigahertz and 900 megahertz. Can the Multiverse receivers be plugged into charge while they are in use? Yes, absolutely. There's a USB-C connection, so you can just plug them in, whether that's line voltage power at the fixture or if the fixture has a 5-volt output. Any IP interface with the transmitter for remote offsite control? That would be done via others. So technically, it's going to be connected to a lighting network since you're feeding it streaming ACN or ArtNet. So whether you can control it over IP will depend on how your network is set up. Can you connect the transmitter to wireless access points so you can use a Wi-Fi enabled control? Yeah, so the transmitter actually has that built in. So it will make its own hotspot and be its own access point. Let's see. Do you recommend leaving RDM communication on when in show mode, or should this be turned off once the system is set up? So when you are connected between two multiverse devices, so a Multiverse Transmitter and Multiverse Studio, RDM will be active at all times. That is because it is now communicating with MDMX and MRDM. Now, downline of that receiver, you should turn off RDM traffic when you are running your show. That being said, any device that has a radio built into it, you can leave RDM on. So let's take the ETC FOS4, for example. You could get your RDM readouts at all times because there is actually not true RDM traffic. It's MRDM traffic, which will not interrupt the DMX stream. Since the transmitting bandwidth varies, then under what condition is the 4 milliseconds latency? With that question, I am going to have to get back to you on that one. Is the Wi-Fi hotspot password protected? Yes, it can be. Default, it is not, but when you are turning it on, there is a password that can be set right there. Let's see what else. Is the transmitter PoE? Yeah, so the transmitter is PoE. It is class 0 and draws 0.5 watt. What else do we have here? Can I transmit multiple universe broadcasts from the multiverse node? No, the multiverse node is only a single universe transceiver. So you can either transmit or receive one universe on that. Let's see what else. How long does it take to charge? Yeah, so when you have it plugged in with the cable and the included power adapter, that's going to be 2.5 hours. In the case, it's going to be 3.5 hours. Is the cord connector on the receiver durable? It's the same one that we have on the thousands of DMXcats that we have out there. And I have to admit, I'm sort of a nervous fidgeter, so I tend to swing my DMXcat around by its by the DMX whip. I really shouldn't do that, but it hasn't broken yet, and I think I have DMXcat 27, so it's taken quite a beating. Let's see. Here's a good one. I've always had big problems with antennas breaking on my wireless DMX dongles. Is your antenna going to break? Well, so the reason that we chose this specific antenna was because of that reason. You know, those rubber ducky antennas at that knuckle is quite fragile. So we wanted to put a rigid antenna there so that's not a failure point. Now, there's also other manufacturers that put the antenna internally, and that's a viable option. The issue that you can run into that is you can have some connection issues when you don't have that physical antenna, especially if you're doing long range transmissions, and you might want to put a long directional antenna on the device. Let's see. I think that's about it for our questions. That's all we really have time for. If we didn't get to your question today, we'll answer it by email, and feel free to call or email with any other questions you may have. I want to thank everyone who joined us today. This webinar and all of the webinars will be posted on our website and on YouTube. Goodbye. Have a great day.